Join me in welcoming the Sedler family men's basketball head coach, Richard Pitino.
Welcome back, everybody, to another podcast episode here on the Muskie Central podcast. Yesterday, I had Rule Blob on here. Today, I'm going to have Paul Fritschner. Sending the link over to him now. Paul, great guy. I want to thank him for joining, for doing this with me. So I'm going to send this email over to him now, and then we'll get started. So I sent that over to him, and and then we'll get started right away. So I got questions for him. Talk about some Xavier basketball, talk about the first three games, try to get a little preview for the Iowa game tomorrow. That's a big game on the road. And then, so wait for him to join in and introduce him. So as we wait, I have a couple other interviews. I know yesterday I had Woodblad that should be coming out today. And then Saturday, right now I'm scheduling one with Trey Carroll. So we'll get some players on here. We got Paul today. He should be joining any second now, but we'll see. But yeah, got some content coming out for you guys. Big game tomorrow uh, at Iowa. I got a list of questions here that I'm gonna ask him. Um, Try to dig into this squad. The long term goal Appertino has. And yeah, so just wait for him to join on in here and we'll get started. But yeah, I'm currently scheduling with Davion McKnight, Adam Kunkel, Soleil Boom, and then Trey Carroll as well. So we're gonna get some past players, and I'm gonna try and get some present players, and get this podcast going. And hopefully I hope you guys have liked them so far. Um, I'm trying my best. It's my first podcast, so um, yeah. Let me make sure that I sent this to the right one. All right. Message. Yeah, sorry about this difficulties. He'll be on here shortly. Um, and then we'll get started. So, let's see here. Oh, there he is.
Test. One,
How you
two,
doing?
three. Hold on just a second. There we go. Can you talk now?
Sorry. Yep.
What's going on? Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Great. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. What's going on, Robbie?
Nothing much. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Robbie. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yep, of course. So first, I know you're doing ESPN Plus games now. How's that been so far?
It's fantastic. I think it's been a great opportunity for me and to take a step in a career and to be able to do some games like this, especially in the Big East. It's been a lot of fun. So I've been enjoying it. Hopefully the people that are watching and listening have been enjoying it too. And yeah, I mean, I still have one more. So excited for that one, man.
Yeah, I know you've called two of the Butler games, right?
Yeah. I had
Have
Butler
they?
on Saturday, Butler on what would that have been? Tuesday?
Yep.
Yeah.
Have they surprised you at all? They look good?
Yeah, they have. And I mean, something that I said on the air with their game was that it's tough to judge when you're playing, two of your first three games are against two of the 5 or 6 worst teams in the country,
Yeah.
probably. So it's a little hard to judge what the Butler team is right now. But for the most part, I mean, I think what sticks out to me, no matter who you play, is does the roster make sense? And to me, I don't know how well they'll defend. I think that's a big question because they didn't defend very well last year. I think they could improve this year with that. And if they do, they're going to win games. And they're going to finish a whole lot better than 10th in the Big East.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's where they were preseason pool was 10th, right?
yeah, they were picked 10th. So
Yeah, Xavier was 8th. So I know Xavier, I know the first 3 games, they really out of the game, starting the game, they've struggled. I know it's like the first game, it was 29-19, but it was really like 19-12 with like 5 minutes left, and then they started going off. What do you think have been kind of the struggles to start the game? Do you think it's a chemistry thing?
yeah, I think for Xavier, there's a lot that they have to figure out. Chemistry is definitely a huge part of it because they're trying to figure out what these guys bring to the table and what their role is within this team because they're all new together, but they're all not new to college basketball. A lot of these
Yep.
guys have experience at other schools. It's not like they're all freshmen. They've played. There's only one freshman on this team, and he's redshirting. So these are guys that have played college basketball before. Problem is they haven't played together. And on top of that, pretty much everybody except for Anthony Robinson has played at the mid-major level. So now you have to take a step up to the high major level. And they haven't even played a high major team yet. We'll see that on Friday against Iowa. Santa Clara is a good team. They were a bye game, though. And that's not a game that Xavier should have lost on their home court. Not only did they lose, they lost by 19. And so I think when you look at what Xavier has in front of them right now, they have a long mountain to climb to get to a place where they want to be the rest of this season. But I think you can also look at it from the lens of what this team is bringing to the table going forward, even past this year. Are these guys capable of competing at the Big East level? And if they're not, how do you replace them? And if they are, who do you choose to bring back next year so that you can have a core to build around?
Yeah, I know you said that they're looking for like not that they're looking forward to next year, but do you think that Pertino built this roster for this year kind of for like the long run, or do you think that it was built for this year?
No, I think development was always the plan for this year. I think when you look at the players on the team and the eligibility that the core of this team has remaining, yeah, Malik and Isaiah and Phillip and Trey are out of eligibility after this year, but at the same time, you have a core of guys. Roddy Anderson has multiple years. Gabe Pizzato, all right. I mean, I could go down the list. They have multiple years, so you're trying to figure out which one of these players can establish themselves within the Big East going forward. And that's kind of like what I was saying just a minute ago, where, yeah, you're building this roster. You don't want to punt on the season because in the NIL era, you can replace easier than ever. But at the same time, with a new coaching staff coming in, you're behind the 8 ball a bit because of the timing of the portal and when you get hired and when you start really hitting the ground running on the portal. It becomes more difficult to try and build for one particular season. Plus, you're behind the 8 ball on an NIL budget perspective as well, because all of these other major schools are dumping their cash, and it's just hard to compete at the numbers that a lot of these schools are throwing around.
Yeah, I know it's been going around. Xavier spent estimated was like 6 million. Uh and I know that I saw a couple stuff. It said that if this year goes wrong and Xavier's like how like people are predicting them to struggle, do you see maybe like the donors that give Xavier this cash? Do you think that they could probably pull away from that if Xavier struggles this year?
Now, I think the donors appreciate and understand the importance of Xavier basketball and what it means to the school and what it means to the program to have the program in the right place. I mean, you look at any program right now, like St. John's or Louisville or Georgetown. I know Georgetown's not quite back to where they were, a decade plus ago, where, you have Roy Hibbert and you have respectable program at Georgetown. They've been the bottom of the barrel of the Big East for a while, but it it's relatively not that difficult to get back to a respectable place. The difficult part is raising the money and making sure that the donors appreciate the vision and appreciate what you're trying to do. I don't think that the top level donors will let Xavier fall into a DePaul or Seton Hall situation where you're consistently at the bottom of the barrel. I do believe this is a 1 year exception for Xavier, that this year is not the rule, it's the exception. And I'm not the one with the big deep pockets, but I would think that the people that do have those pockets will not let Xavier get to that point. They appreciate and understand the importance of it.
Yeah, getting back into kind of the game the other night. I know it was Xavier's worst loss since after the crosstown shootout against Oral Roberts. What was your kind of reactions and what did you see during that game?
I saw a team that quite honestly needs to put a better effort on the floor. It's one thing to not be as talented as the rest of the teams that you're playing against, but to be out toughed, out hustled, and out efforted on your home court, that can't happen. And those are the things that, even if you aren't talented, you can put forth the rest of the year. And at least at that point, fans will respect and appreciate what you're trying to do and what kind of effort you're playing with night in and night out. You didn't see much of that on Monday, and Richard Pitino talked about it after the game. You know, it's nothing I just said is anything he didn't pretty explicitly say, that they want to get to a point where, you know, no matter what, you're putting forth your best effort. And if your best effort falls short because you're just not as talented as the team you're playing against, then that's just how it might be this year. But at the very least, you know, on Monday, you could see if Roddy Anderson hadn't gone off in the last 6 or 8 minutes, that could have been a 30-point loss.
Yeah, I know after the Lemoyne game, Roddy Anderson said he knows that they're not the most talented group, but they got to be scrappy. And I feel like during that game, it might have been only him that was really scrappy because he was the one that he knocked the ball, went in the past half court, he dove on it. I didn't really see any, like, I'm not gonna say effort, but like they just kind of looked lost, I would say, out there. And but yeah, like Roddy said, like you said, them giving the effort, that's what Xavier really wants to see. No matter if they're not talented, I don't want to see him go out there and just giving no effort.
Yeah, I think the effort will improve. I'm sure of that.
Yep. Um, so I know during that game, Malik, he didn't take a single shot. What did you see? I know he's been Xavier's go-to guy so far. He had 14 in the first half against Lemoyne. What did you see that he just couldn't get a shot off in that game?
I To me, the offense looked stagnant. It didn't look like it had much flow. It didn't look like they were running many sets. It looked like they were just, I don't want to say iso ball, because Xavier right now does lead the NCAA in assists. I believe they've assisted on all but 8 made shots so far through their first 3 games, which is an incredible number.
Yep.
Um, but it it all at some point when you're the team's leading scorer, and granted, I know it was through just 2 games, but when you're the team's leading scorer, at some point you have to just hunt shots. You have to put yourself in a position where you can at least try to score. It's one thing, like I said the other night after the game, to go 0 for 5 and, yeah, it wasn't your night, shots didn't fall. He didn't even attempt a shot. And that to me is what stood out the most from Monday's game individually, because after what he did against Lemoyne and Marist, you're thinking, okay, at least he's somebody steady that you can rely on to score, to shoot, whatever. He was just never even really in the position uh, consistently through the game to get shots that he needed, and he ended up at the end of the game didn't attempt one.
Yeah, I know after the Murray State game, everybody was kind of putting Trey Carroll into the spot of being the guy. And then the first 2 games, it was Malik Moore. Who do you see as the guy to give the ball to Xavier if they need a bucket to put the ball in their hand?
I think it's probably Malik, and I know he didn't attempt a shot on Monday, but I still think it's him. I think Trey Carroll was maybe asked to play that role against Murray State. Maybe he'll be asked to play a bit of that role just because of his experience at some points. But I don't think naturally that is his role. And that's not a knock on Trey. I just don't think as a player he needs to be asked to do that. You need a player like either Roddy Anderson or Malik Messina Moore to be able to go out there and make a shot for you at some point, especially Roddy with how fast he plays. You need one of those guys to be able to go out and make a shot.
Yeah, and then Anthony Robinson, I was very high on him. I still am. I know he's only a sophomore. He didn't really play last year at Virginia, and then he's coming in here. He's starting. What have you seen? Kind of been his struggles so far this season.
He has not rebounded the ball very well. He has not played very physically either, and that's my concern, is that with how big of a body he is, he's not undersized. He's maybe a little under, on height. He's not the tallest player on the floor, but even still, I was expecting with his size for him to be a more physical presence than what we've seen so far. And I think that will come. He didn't play much last year at Virginia. He didn't see extended minutes. He wasn't on the court as much as he's been on the court so far for Xavier. He needs to rebound better. He has to make sure he's defending without fouling. But all of those things will come. I mean, he's only a sophomore, like you said, Robbie, and he's got room to grow. And I expect him to do that as the season goes on.
Yeah, and then another sophomore is all right. First game, he had 14 off the bench, and then he went to the starting position in the second game, replacing Roddy. What have you seen what did you see that he did good to get 14 in the first game that he's kind of struggled the last 2 games?
Well, he made shots, and I think Allright is undersized at this level, and I think that is his biggest limitation is just his size right now. It will hold him back, I think, to an extent, but if his off ball movement is good enough to put himself in a position to get shots, you saw that in the first game, made 4 threes. And if you're shooting like that on a team that will probably struggle offensively, if you're hitting shots, you're going to find yourself on the floor. And that's what he did in game 1.
Yeah, and then on Monday, Mir Panome, he made his Xavier debut. What do you think that Mir? I when he committed, I was kind of expecting him to be like the sleeper that nobody would really talk about, and then he'd go off. But then he got hurt. What do you think that Mir Panome can bring to the squad?
Athleticism, without a doubt. He's the most athletic player on this team, and how that translates, we'll see, because he's been hurt for. I have not seen it. The most I've seen Mir play were the few minutes that he played on Monday. I haven't seen him practice. I haven't seen him play in person. I've watched his film from years past, but I haven't seen him play. So it's hard for me to sit here and say exactly what he's going to bring to the team without having seen how he's utilized in practice and what he brings to the fold. But he's the most athletic player on the team. So if you can utilize that athleticism, especially from the backcourt, maybe trying to get out and transition, defend, and play. He can dunk at a pretty high level.
Yep.
So there is that card you can play from your back pocket.
Yeah, and then Jovan Milicevic, he also had 14 in the first game off the bench with all right. What have you seen kind of out of him so far these last 2 games? Because I know on Monday it looked like he was kind of lost out there. But what have you seen from him so far?
Him and Phillip both, they come from New Mexico where they know the system. And I think they're still trying to get acclimated within a group of new guys that don't know the system as well. And I think you could say the same for him and Phillip, maybe that they were trying to do too much. I think maybe more so Phillip than Jovan, but I'd like to see Jovan take a few more shots from the perimeter. And I know maybe for his size that sounds crazy, but he's a pretty decent shooter from 3, at least what I saw in practice over the summer. He's a pretty decent shooter and can stretch the floor. There were times, I remember one down in the post. He just gets the ball down low. It was hard for him to try and score. He's not the most athletic guy on the floor, so he has to do the other things well. But again, I would expect him to continue to improve, play a larger role just because he's familiar with what they're trying to do.
Yeah, and then Pape, he came from UNLV. I think he's only had 3 points so far, and that was a 3 against Lemoyne. What do you think? Do you think that they could maybe move more towards him if Robinson's struggles continue, or do you think that they'll leave Robinson in there to develop?
I think it'll be Anthony Robinson. I think he's your answer. I think Pop has a lot of room that he needs to grow into to be able to see the floor consistently. I'm not saying he won't see spot minutes here and there off the bench, but I think Pop has a long way to go to continue to see extended minutes, and it'll be Anthony Robinson underneath.
So yeah, I know Monday was a wake-up call for Xavier. Well, that's what I would say. Do you think that they have another big game, and then that was their first road test at Iowa? What do you think they're going to do better on Friday that you think maybe they didn't do on Monday?
I think the offense might look better on Friday night just because it looked so terrible on Monday where guys, there was no fluidity. They were stagnant. Like I said earlier, it didn't look like they were doing much well offensively. Iowa's a very good team, but college basketball is a funny sport. It would not surprise me if Xavier kept this game close and respectable for most of it, just because when you play like the way you did on Monday, sometimes the response in the game after the problem is you're going on the road to a high major opponent. The
Yeah.
response is not another bye game. You're playing Old Dominion or Texas A&M Corpus Christi. You're going on the road to Carver Hawkeye Arena. I mean, that is a tough ask of this group. I'm not saying they're going to win on Friday night, but it wouldn't shock me if that game was closer than a lot of people would probably anticipate it being after what we saw on Monday.
Yeah, I know Iowa, they have a new coach, McCollum. And then you also got to go on the road, which will make it a little harder. But like you said, college basketball is a funny sport. We've seen crazier things. Um, I know that you follow UC and all that. And then the crosstown shootout. What are your kind of expectations for this crosstown shootout?
Crosstown shootout this year it's a game where UC will be fairly heavily favored to win, both on the lines and just from how the two teams will play going into the game, barring any injuries on the UC side. If everybody's healthy on both sides, I would expect UC to be a pretty healthy favorite in the game. There have been plenty of crosstown shootouts in years past, and even remember 2 years ago, UC came to Cintas as the favorite and couldn't get it done. Quincy Oliveri went off in that game. Xavier is going to need to play their best game of their season probably to win that game. It will be asking a lot because a lot of what Xavier struggles with, UC does well. They're a great defensive team. They have some size with Baba Miller and Mustafa Cham. Day Thomas is a great defensive guard. He can also score. We saw that the other night against Dayton. UC's a good team. I know they're missing Jizzle James. I know they're missing, not missing Jizzle James. He's just not on the team. They are missing Jalen Haynes. He will likely not play in the crosstown shootout, at least, from what Wes Miller was saying before the season. He'll be out an indefinite amount of time after surgery. I would highly doubt that he's back by the time the crosstown shootout is played in 3 weeks. This is a game that if Xavier wins, if you're a UC fan, you just have to scratch your head and think, if not now, when, right? They haven't.
Yep.
Cincinnati hasn't won the crosstown shootout at the Cintas Center since the very first crosstown shootout that was played back in 2001 at that building. So it's been forever. I mean, it's been going on a quarter century since they've won at that building, and all the stars are lining up for Cincinnati to win this year. So if it's not this year, then it's when for Cincinnati. But it'll be a tall task for Xavier. There's no doubt.
Yeah, I know you said UC's defense, and then you look at Xavier's defense. The first game, first half, they looked pretty solid. But ever since, like they got outscored in the second half against Marist, outscored against Lemoyne. What do you kind of see in Xavier's defense? Do you think it's like maybe they just aren't used to playing with each other, so they aren't communicating? What do you see?
Yeah, I thought Xavier would be a better defensive team than what we've already seen through the first 3 games. I thought I had my major concerns about the offense and just who was going to be able to score the ball going into the year. But defensively, I thought they would be better than they have been. And I think, as you said, time will help with that. The more they play together, the more that they communicate, the more they understand what they're trying to do defensively. I think they will improve defensively as the season goes on. But I would think just with some of the athletes they have on this team and some of the length too. I mean, I know Xavier's not the biggest team, but Jovan Milicevic for his positional size is not small. Anthony Robinson the same way. It's just got to play tougher, got to play more physical, more effort there on the defensive end.
Yeah, you look at Roddy. Um, What did you see that he did on Monday a little differently than what he did the first 2 games? I know from what I saw, it looked like he drove more. He started drawing a lot more fouls. I think he had, I don't know how many free throws, but I know he shot a lot of free throws. What do you think that he did different on Monday against Santa Clara?
Yeah, the second half, I think he realized somebody needed to step up. And quite simply, that was him. He shouldered that load. He said, "We're not going to lose this game by 40," right? And he was the only one really that stood up in the second half of that game and made an impact. I mean, he scored 25 of his 29 points in the second half. So to me, I think he was just getting downhill. He was getting the bucket. He was playing more aggressive. He was shouldering the load of the offense that hopefully he's not asked to shoulder too much the rest of the year. But he had to do it on Monday because nobody else was hitting shots. He at least did it himself. It wasn't enough, but
Yep.
at the same time, it was what Xavier needed from an effort perspective to make sure that it wasn't a 40-point game. Because it very
Yeah.
easily could have been.
Yeah. I mean, they were down by 30 with like 2 minutes left, and then uh, they kind of started chipping away, but it was too late at that point. Um, I know the first three games, well, the first two, the first game, there was a different lineup than the second. What do you feel is the ideal lineup that Xavier needs to go with to kind of start off fast instead of slow?
You mean the starting lineup?
Yep.
Yeah, I like that lineup that they went with in game 2. I'll be interested to see how Roddy Anderson develops, playing the one there. I think the answer would be what you had in game 1 versus game 2. I'm trying to remember so Jovan got the start in game 2, I believe. That was the game
Yep.
I
For
had
Philip. Yep.
with and then in the Lemoyne game it was Roddy Anderson back in the starting lineup, correct?
All right was in the
Or was
he was
was
yeah, all right was in the starting lineup for the second game. And
okay.
then Roddy was on the bench.
But for the third, for Santa Clara, was Roddy in the starting lineup
Yeah,
for the
yep.
Santa Clara? That's what I thought.
Yeah, they went
So
back to the first game lineup.
yeah, that's what I thought. Maybe looking at that lineup, it's hard to switch out all right for anybody else because then you go very small unless you put all at the one and you switch out him and Roddy. But all didn't score against Santa Clara. He was 0 for 4 from the field. I'd probably stick with the starting lineup that you went with against Santa Clara because I think that gives you the best chance to be dangerous. Malik Messina Moore, Phillip, Anthony, Trey, Roddy. I think that's probably the lineup going forward.
Yeah, like you said, Robinson developing. Who do you see kind of when Big East play comes that they've kind of taken a leap? Well, not like necessarily just when Big East comes, but towards the end of the season, who do you think you can be like, oh, he's taking a big leap?
I think the answer has to be Anthony Robinson, or else if it's not Anthony Robinson, then you're really scratching your head going into this portal offseason because he has to make the jump. He has to. Otherwise, Roddy Anderson has another year of eligibility remaining. He can come back to Xavier next year. All Right can come back. Gabe Pizzato can come back. But if Anthony Robinson and the core of that middle doesn't develop, then that's what I'm looking at. Can he get to a point where he's consistently finding himself in substantial minutes and contributing in a big way?
Uh, yeah, then you said Roddy could come back, all right could come back, and then you got Kalik House coming in next year. What have you seen, or what do you know about Kalik House and what he could possibly bring to the squad?
Again, it's really hard to say for freshmen. I think we're in a day and age now where it's get old, stay old, and if he can provide anything, and I'm going to leave this massively general because it's so hard for freshmen to compete. Now, I say it's so hard to compete, but you look at this year across the sport, it's a anomaly of a year when you look at Darren Peterson and AJ
Yep.
DeBonza and Cam Boozer and Koa Pete, and these names across the sport that are taking the sport by storm as freshmen. It's still really hard to make a difference as a freshman in today's day and age just because of the age and the experience of the sport in general. If he can give you anything next year, then that's a net positive. Otherwise, you're looking for what can Xavier get out of the portal, and it becomes, I don't want to say a total rebuild. I'm not saying that. You try to retain some talent from this year, but I think you're more concerned about what happens in the portal this upcoming offseason.
Yeah, I know that when Miller was here, he didn't really target the high schoolers. I know he had Lewis, and now he's
Nick
at
Lewis, yep,
yeah, now he's at
VCU.
VCU, I think. Yeah, I know that like a lot of teams they don't really go after freshmen as much as they used to, just with the portal and everybody jumping now, becoming more. But now talk about the portal again. I've been seeing stuff, people saying Xavier won't be able to compete in kind of the new era with the college basketball landscape. What do you have to say about that?
I think Xavier will be able to compete just fine. I think this year was an anomaly, and going forward, uh, as long as the donors and the people with the money that care about the program continue to care about the program and step up, just fine might be relative, because I don't think they are going to let this program slip to a DePaul or Seton Hall level that I keep seeing people talk about, the doom and gloom that's been on social media this week. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done for this team and this program, a ton of work behind the scenes to get this program back to where it expects to be consistently. And in today's day and age, we'll just call it like it is. Is it realistic to expect this team to make the NCAA tournament every single year the way that they did for the 2000s and into the mid 2010s until after Chris Mack left? Maybe it's not anymore. It might be hard to expect that every year, but you should at least be making it 3 out of 5 years, 60% of the time, I would say, at least, if not 4 out of 5 years. And if you have 1 year in there where you need to rebuild, so be it. But I think the portal this upcoming offseason, I would expect more Big East level talent out of the portal this upcoming year. The plan going into it, what they want to do, the type of player they want to identify. And then from that point on, it becomes a question of, can the players that they get go out and win games? It's as simple as that, because now you'll have a year under your belt to understand what kind of player you need to win in the Big East.
Yeah, I was just about to bring that up. Patino, he's coming from New Mexico. I have a couple more questions, but Patino, he's coming from New Mexico. Do you think that this was kind of like the players that he got? Do you think this was kind of like a year that he's going to realize, like, maybe I had to take a step up than what I did at New Mexico to really compete in the Big East?
Yeah, I would say he probably, you understand what kind of player you want, but at the same time, and you hear it from, I'm sure he's hearing it from his dad as well,
Yep.
but you're limited by your budget, and you're limited by, your timing of the players that are available, and having to put together 12 or 13 players, and having to compete with the budgets that these players are asking for. All of those things combined made it difficult this season. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure the coaching staff is going to learn things this year. They would probably tell you that there are things they're going to learn this year about the type of players they want, that they need to identify, and that next year in the portal, it'll probably look a lot different than it did this year.
Yeah, I have two more questions. Uh, Xavier, now they're predicted to finish eighth in the Big East, and then uh, n- really finish maybe 10 to 15 wins. What do you think is the ideal finish for Xavier at the end of the year?
Well, the ideal finish would be making the NCAA tournament, but I don't think this team's going to make the NCAA tournament. I would say if this team can get to, let's call it 13 wins, 14 wins, I think that's probably a pretty good year for this team, given what we saw on Monday. I mean, they'll have 4 bye games remaining, so that gets you to 6 wins. Can you win 8 of your other high major games? Can you win 1 game in Charleston? Can you win one of the shootout or Iowa? I mean, both of those are going to be almost impossible tasks, but not impossible. But they'll be very challenging. Can you win one of those 4 games at least? And then, I mean, 7 wins in the Big East gets you to 14. That's tough. And that includes winning all of your bye games as well.
Yep.
So, Old Dominion's no slouch. Missouri State, no slouch. So, Texas A&M, Corpus Christi, and the St. Francis, little on the easier side, but both of those teams, credit to them, will come into Cintas having seen what happened in Marist, Lemoyne, and Santa Clara, and say, hey, every team that comes to Cintas this year will have expectations of winning. There's
Yep.
no doubt. And that's some of the dangerous part of what Xavier's now done to themselves and put the target on their back of, hey, we're going to need to win these games and reassert ourselves here because a lot of these bye game teams are going to come in and expect to win. I would say somewhere in the range of 13 to 14 wins would be a great year for this team.
Yeah, that's where I had them at. 13 wins was where I had them at. So I know you kind of, this is my last question. I know you touched on it earlier, but what is your preview kind of for this game on Friday? I know tomorrow. I know it's a big game. What's your preview for it?
Yeah, I think, just to pull up Iowa here, Iowa started they're 2-0 right now. They're a top 50 team. Ben McCollum ran a great system at Drake. He brings over Bennett Sturts from Drake. But they have a lot of guys on this team that came from Drake with him and understand what they're trying to do. They ran a very slow and methodical offense at Drake. And guess what? They're last in the country in tempo already this season through 2 games. They did score 101 points in their opener. They scored 77 in their second game, but that's because they're hitting shots. They're 7th in the country in effective field goal percentage. They're 5th in free throw rate, 33rd in 3-point percentage, 10th in 2-point percentage, like around the rim, 34th in free throw percentage just overall. They barely ever turn the ball over. So from that perspective, it's really, really hard to see this Xavier team beating Iowa tomorrow because they do all the little things right that give Xavier trouble. But if it's close, I'm sure the spread will come out at somewhere around 12.5. I mean, it's 11 right now on Ken Palm, probably add another 1.5 just for the performance of Xavier the other day. I would guess it's somewhere in the 12.5, 13.5 range. It would not surprise me if Xavier kept this game close because that's just how the sport goes. You respond. If this is a 30-point game, then it could be a really long year for Xavier. I think it will be a long year for Xavier, but if this is a 30-point game, then you start to have to ask yourself, what can you make of this season go? But look, Xavier went to Purdue a couple of years ago. Now that Xavier team had some studs on that team, but they also had, Zach Fremantle and Jerome Hunter were hurt. Dalen Swain was a freshman. That was a new group, but, had some players that ended up developing into a decent team a couple of years later. So, yeah, we'll see what happens tomorrow at Iowa, but Iowa's a good team. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I was at that Purdue game too, and I thought I was going, and I was like, maybe it was like their 3rd or 4th game, and I was like, I'll see how it goes. And they surprised me. I think it was only like it was 83 to 71. I think it was way closer than people were expected.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it, and best of luck with all the games you're calling.
Absolutely, Robbie. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate you. And, best of luck with the show as you cover the team this season.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
Have a good one.
You too, Robbie.
Xavier has upset Arizona.
Everyone, please join me in welcoming the Sedler family men's basketball head coach, Richard Patino.